How do you feel about the government having a facial recognition image of every single person who enters this country? I'm Scott Ott, and this episode of Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Guys, there are a number of civil rights organizations that have filed a complaint against an effort by the Customs and Border Protection, to have facial recognition equipment at every land and seaport, and there's some suggestion also along the borders. The idea here, of course, is from the Department of Homeland Security to provide us with security. But Stephen Green, the suggestion, at least by these civil rights groups, is this kind of information can be stored for up to 75 years. It is accessible not just by the DHS, but also by law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, and local level, and potentially by foreign governments. This would provide these entities with information about where people go, who they associate with, and even what they believe, in the sense of being able to track them when they go to religious gatherings or places of worship, because we have this trove of facial recognition software. Steve, it's interesting because conservatives are always on the side of law and order. And frankly, we put up with a lot in the Patriot Act after 9/11 because we wanted to defend this country from foreign attacks that come from within, essentially. But do you think conservatives should be on board with letting the federal government amass this kind of a database?
You know, I can't think of a whole lot of conservatives, and certainly no libertarians, not even right-leaning libertarians that I know of, or in real life or virtually, who supported the Patriot Act. Not a one. It was a horrible bill. It was basically a laundry list of bureaucratic items that the federal government had wanted for a very long time, and the attacks of 9/11 were simply their excuse to get them. Terrible bill. If I had a magic wand, I would wave it and make the whole damn thing go away. Every single last word of it, every single last penny they've ever spent on it. We're in the week after finding out there's been yet another huge foreign government hack of Washington databases. And the first time when I first heard of Bitcoin that was built on blockchain that was supposedly unhackable, then a couple of years later, one of these Bitcoins actually got hacked, and Glenn Reynolds over at Instapundit had just a very short, pithy headline, as is his style: everything gets hacked. Eventually, long enough timeline, everything gets hacked. So if Washington is going to collect all of this data, and it's not, if you understand how facial recognition works, it uses a set of projected dots to build a 3D algorithmic model of your face. So it doesn't really matter what direction you're looking, if you put on a fake nose or fake ears or any of that stuff, it can still build a model of your face. That's why if you've got one of these iPhones with the facial recognition in there for unlocking your phone, that's why it works when you grow out your hair, when you grow a beard, when you put your glasses on, when you take your glasses off. If this data is in Washington's computers, it's gonna get hacked. I just saw a story on Monday or Tuesday of this week that China used the big data breach of a few years ago to track down our intelligence assets in Africa. So it's not just stuff they can do here, it's stuff they can do abroad to us once this data gets hacked, and everything gets hacked. I wrote a column years and years ago, as in the first year or two of Vodka Pundits. We're talking almost 20 years ago now. It was not a well-received column in which I observed, I did not endorse that the age of privacy was over. And this is before it all became digitized. This is when they were putting surveillance cameras everywhere that was actually recording to video cassette tapes. And that's hard enough for data mining. You actually have to sit through and fast forward through each and every tape to find what you're looking for. Now it's up there and it's instant. With the speed at which your phone can unlock with your face, somebody in Beijing, somebody in Moscow, somebody in Nigeria can suck that data out, and they sure as hell will. Listen, we can't trust this damn government with anything, and we're going to trust it with 3D algorithmic models of everybody's faces? I don't think so.
Bill Whittle, I have, as many people do, a Ring security camera that views what happens outside of my house. Oddly enough, I didn't get it for the same reason that most people do. I got it because in my little fantasy world, I thought I was going to be able to tell the package delivery guy to put the darn package behind the column, not in the middle of the sidewalk where everybody can see it. But it turns out it doesn't work that fast, and the delivery guy is gone by the time the video comes up. So I've never actually spoken to anybody through this thing. But Bill, doesn't it seem to you, though, that the genie is out of the bottle when it comes to stuff like this, and that these ACLU-type groups are just tilting at windmills if they think they're going to stop the federal government, especially when they have the argument that I used to see all the time, even at the county level, coming from our district attorney, who would basically say, oh, you don't want us to have an up-armored Humvee with a 50 caliber rotating turret machine gun on top of it? What do you want, crime to thrive in the streets of our city? That's the kind of argument that gets made. Is it ever possible to slap back this federal government and say, no, we're not going to let you have this one?
I never thought about this before, but everybody in 1945, after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, said that the nuclear genie's out of the bottle. But guess what? That genie's been in the bottle for the last 75 years now.
Notwithstanding testing,
right?
Yeah.
The idea that something cannot be undone, that something once it's released is irretrievably gone, is the biggest tool that the left has in terms of us accepting and just being resigned to this declining future of ours, where we all just eat our algae paste and talk about the good old days as we die childless up in the hills. And I don't buy any of that. As far as the argument about security goes, I don't know. It seems reasonable to me that if somebody's trying to get into the country, maybe they could present a small printed book on paper with the picture of themselves from the country of their origin, and somebody could inspect that and see if that matches the face and maybe ask a question or two. And if it turned out they were legally here, you could put a little stamp on that thing, and that would determine how long they'd be here, and then you'd have a record of them being here. That might work well. If you're on the southern border and people are coming across, you might just ask to see something like a driver's license or something. And a human being can look at the picture on the driver's license and compare it to the picture of the person there and achieve all of the things that we're told we need to implement the software in order to achieve. But I know what these guys are really up to. And what they're up to is a lot more pernicious and a lot more dangerous than what you think it is. Whenever we think about things like either the government or Apple or Google is listening to our conversations, we take that personally. And that's a big mistake, because it's not got anything to do with you personally. It's got nothing to do with you personally. They want it there not because they want to keep track of conservatives or keep track of you. They want it there because they need to increase the data points in their database. And their database now has trillions, probably quadrillions of data points. This is worth spending the time on. Every mouse click you have ever made in your life has been recorded by Google, and every single choice that you have ever made in terms of advertising, videos, articles that you've read, it's all been collected, not to get you so they could come after you someday. So that it's rather so that these gigantic AI, artificial intelligence algorithms can predict what large bodies and large numbers of people are going to do with a high level of certainty. And by using these algorithms, they can determine just how much people are going to take. Just how much of being locked in the house they might take, or just how much fraud they might take, or just what they would do if it turned out that there was concrete evidence, like video evidence, that people stole an election from them. The behavior of the American people is tuned, and every other population is tuned too. And these people know to a ninth decimal place what this body of people called the American people will do. And every time they get more data, they are able to refine their predictions of what we will do and not do, because they know us better than we do. And that, to me, is more than just a question of, hey, we shouldn't implement this policy. That, to me, is a question of actually finding out where these damn servers are and the rest of this stuff, and going there with pitchforks and torches and smashing these things, not because they're technology, not because they're advanced, because they're not doing what they were built to do. They are not doing this to help us access information. Now they're doing it to help us not access information. They're using these things not to allow us to make more choices, but they're doing it to limit the number of choices that we have. These tools have been turned into weapons against us by big tech and the deep state. And it's not just a question of saying, no, we don't want any more new stuff like this. We all carry around something that knows what we look like, where we are at any given moment. Every conversation you may have had with your wife, your girlfriend, or both of them at the same time has been recorded by this thing if they want it to. And again, you shouldn't take that personally. They're not coming after you. They want to know what the entire population will do, given any set of circumstances, and they tweak that down. So I say it's time to go and find these servers and these AIs and rip them out of the wall and have them replaced with simple things that do what they're supposed to do. Here's a search engine. It looks at the web and it finds every single article and lists them according to what's most like what you searched for. And this is of all of the things that I wanted. I would have traded everything in a Donald Trump presidency for the destruction of big tech. And now, since big tech was such a big part of stealing that election, you can bet they're going to get rewarded for it. But ultimately, a guy with an axe versus you see, hey, the IBM computer has just defeated the human chess master. Wow, that's impressive. Now, when the IBM computer can defeat the guy in the room with the axe, that's when you're in trouble. And I'm not being flipped. That is the one thing that should keep us comfortable at night, at least for the near term.
You know, I'll bet that more money has been wasted around the idea of if we can help just one person with this idea than any other kind of statement in history. And I'll bet you more freedom has been surrendered with the phrase, if we can stop just one of these. One. And that we have sold our constitutional souls over and over again to the idea that it is worth it if we can stop one 9/11 style attack, one Lockerbie bombing, one something. That wouldn't it be worth it? And how is it inconveniencing you? After all, if you're just walking through an airport, what do you lose if the government happens to scan your face and keep a record of it for years and years and share it with state and local law enforcement agencies and perhaps with the government of Qatar or Dubai? Why would you care about that? After all, you're not doing anything wrong. The law means no harm to you. This is only to catch the bad guys. I think we make a terrible mistake when we look at it that way. And the things that government officials, like the people we elect and send to Washington, should really be concerned about are things like this. This is the kind of thing that they can control. But instead, they are bloviating about issues over which they really have no control and about things that really don't matter as substantively as this. I mean, in 1984, Eric Blair was not coming up with a fantasy out of his mind. He was essentially writing a narrative of what he had already seen and adding a little technology to it. Now, the technology has come to us. By the way, Eric Blair, George Orwell, same guy. Anyway, the thing that comes back to me every time I read a story like this is a TV show that my wife and I binge watched, starring Jim Caviezel, the guy who played in the what was the Christ movie? I forget what it was even called.
Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ. Thank you. Anyway, Jim Caviezel plays the lead character in this show called Person of Interest. And Person of Interest is all about this massive computer that incorporates facial recognition technology with artificial intelligence to not just be able to catch people who've committed crimes, but actually to be able to intercept them before the crimes are committed. And to keep track of those people and run the calculations and say, look, this is developing into a situation that we need to intervene in advance. I used to think that was an amazing crime thriller fantasy. I don't think that anymore. I know just enough about what the technology is capable of, and worse yet, the technology in the hands of government officials who mean us well, that I believe that Person of Interest someday is going to be a documentary. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.